M6 and a few other assorted roads to Manchester, where we will be hosted by Manchester City. Kick-offs at 3 p.m. on Saturday, but do keep an eye out for the weather. All sorts of warnings around twixt here and there, so above all, be safe. Well, it's been a bit of an odd season for them, hasn't it? They shot out the traps like Ben Johnson in Seoul. Then something weird happened. After winning 7 and drawing 2 of their first 9, they lost at Bournemouth. Yeah, okay, so no big deal, a mere blip, one might have thought. Then they lost to Brighton the following week. Yeah, okay, let's get the blips out of the way all at once then. Then they lost at home to Spurs, 4-0. That's when the world sat up and took notice. Let's face it, something's got to be wrong when that happens. Since then, they've lost to Liverpool, Manchester United, another indicator of all is not well, and Villa. They've drawn with Palace and Everton, and their only wins out of the last 10 have come at home to Forest and away at Leicester, which has left them in 6th place with 31 points from 19 games played. Tellingly, that's just outside the European places. As with last week's Liverpool squad, they didn't actually go mad in the transfer market during the summer. They sort of spent £30 million on Brazilian winger Savinho, who came in from Troyes. I say spent. The player didn't make a single appearance for the French second-tier club, to whom the player was assigned by the City Football Group, who are the organisation that actually bought the player from Atlético Mineiro. He spent most of his time out on loan with another group member, Girona. His first goal for City came in the 2-0 win at Leicester. We mentioned Ilkay Gundogan way back in August. His sojourn to Barcelona ended with a return to City. Daisy reckons she covered him way back when we played them back in August, and she would be damned if she would look it all up again. She did give a passing mention to Divin Mubama, whose career has shown all the classic hallmarks of having people in his ear at the wrong stage of his career. He went up to Man City from us for £2 million worth of compensation and has simply disappeared into their academy system. The word on the grapevine is that Issa Kabore is likely to be recalled from his loan spell at Benfica. This is not, as one might suppose, a desire to bring in a new player who might stop the rot. It's more a function of the fact that the Burkina Faso right-back has barely set foot on the pitch at the real Stadium of Light, and it seems likely that if the loan is terminated, as has been suggested, the player will be going out somewhere else on loan. They've had a number of injuries, of course, over the last few months, and since we played them, the big miss has been Rodri, whose Ballon d'Or award caused Real Madrid to chuck their toys out of the pram. His ACL injury will mean that he won't be seen until next season. Bob, that's Bob with 2 B's, Diaz, Nunez and Stones are all major doubts as well. However, the return to match fitness over the past few weeks of De Bruyne will be a bit of a boost to them. It's no coincidence that he was missing due to a thigh injury picked up in September for many of the games that constituted their most iffy run for years. With them having not signed too many players, and there not being much to say about them, let's move on, shall we, to the wild and wacky world of association football, and we'll take a trip across to the other side of Greater Manchester, to Salford, where Manchester United shareholders Ineos have decided that they weren't unpopular enough amongst the fan base, many of whom are already digging out their Chelsea kits as we speak. They're going on a bit of a cost-cutting exercise. Having dispensed with the ambassadorial services of the admittedly rather obnoxious Alex Ferguson, having made their employees pay for their transport costs to the last season's FA Cup final, and having cut out minor bonuses for stewards, they'd recently contacted the trustees of their charitable foundation to advise them that they would be cutting their support from next year, adding at the end of the letter, "With best regards for Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year." The Salford Whingers also scrapped concessions halfway through the season, with their Supremo Sir Jim Ratcliffe moaning that he didn't see why a ticket to see Manchester United should be cheaper than one to see Fulham. Just take a look at the league table, Sir Jim, the clues are there. Let's move on to us before Brady and Sullivan get any more ideas from them. Well, poor as we played yet again, we found ourselves losing to a Liverpool team who, frankly, cannot bring the game into disrepute any further. To put it mildly, we were just kicked off the pitch by a team whose thuggish antics were reminiscent of 1970s Leeds. Or in fact, to be more accurate, 1970s Liverpool, who always benefited from the fact that their PR was better than Revy's. When even the BBC, an organisation for whom criticising Liverpool represents a disciplinary offence, comments on the number of challenges that, in the Beeb's own words, were, quote, a bit naughty, unquote, you know how bad things were. I'm guessing that the author of that particular bit of text commentary has probably now been sacked. Paquetá and Bowen were quite simply targeted right from the start, and Anthony Taylor, yet again, completely failed in his duty to protect players. We can, I suppose, be a bit grateful that he didn't actually join in. Their supporters were their usual pond life as well, blagging their way into home sections, some with tickets bought from our own ticket office, who will settle anyone, it seems. The gobby one that announced, we're Liverpool and we go where we want, mate, was typical of their attitude, and the stewards only got involved really when that attitude got the response it deserved. Still, given the usual bent refereeing that they enjoy, one good thing seems to have come out of it all. With the goal that was offside, PGMOL issued their usual lies in the hope that nobody would notice. However, there was a further announcement from the IFAB, which is the body responsible for actually making the laws. They announced that from next season there will be a change to the offside law. Now, the wording will remain unchanged, but from next season it's been decided that it will also apply to Liverpool. That experiment will last a season, but if successful, it's anticipated that they might actually widen the scope to include the other 16 laws of the game as well. Yeah, right. Bowen's now going to be absent until probably around the end of February, following his treatment on Saturday. It left him with a fractured foot. That's something to bear in mind, Jared, next time they make an illegal approach to sign you. Antonio will, of course, be missing, though it was a most welcome sight to see him leaving hospital during the week. Fabianski has to wait another week or so, having been another victim of lax refereeing, his concussion meaning that strict rules are applied, in this case, to the victim rather than the perpetrator. On the bright side, both Rodriguez and Souček will be available for selection, having served their suspensions, the latter likely to be presented with the armband in Bowen's absence, which will highlight once more for the 100th consecutive transfer window running the need for us to actually sign a striker. Perhaps someone could mention that to Sullivan and Brady if they can drag themselves away from looking all gooey-eyed at Sir Jim Ratcliffe as they look for more cost-cutting tips. This brings us on to the subject of the prediction. Well, with our best player absent, and if you want a money-saving tip, Mr. Sullivan and Brady, how about sending Liverpool the bill for his wages while he's off? It's hard to see us getting us anything out of this, even if they have decided to take a year off from winning the league up there. They didn't convince against Leicester, it has to be said, but Haaland did actually score after what seemed like an eternity. So with that in mind, the £2 that I was going to send to Man United to see them through what is obviously a major financial crisis will instead be going on a home win. Let's call it 3-1 to them, shall we, Ray, me old mucker? Enjoy the game and, if you must, Happy New Year.